Hello again, learners. I'm Sir Skipser Pimentel, your Science 10 teacher. Welcome to our video lesson. Are you ready for our exciting lesson for today? Come and join me explore, learn, and discover interesting things today. And that is the occurrence of evolution. Behind me are the different species or a group of living organisms capable of reproduction. To ensure the survival of their group and avoid extinction, maintaining individual differences and variety of characteristics are important. Here in this module, we will also discussing the different sources of possible evidence for evolution, such as fossil records, developmental and molecular biology, which gave way to the different concepts about the origin of life. It will also provide a variety of activities to help you understand the processes and mechanism of evolution. At the end of this module, you are expected to: Number 1, understand what evolution is and its theory. Number 2, identify the importance of understanding the origin of life. Number 3, explain why reproduction, variation, and adaptation are necessary for the survival of a species. And number 4, discuss how natural selection promotes expression and propagation of traits and species that adapt with the changing environment. Before we proceed, let us check first what you know. Let us go to your pre-assessment questions. Do you know why dinosaurs no longer exist today? Why are some animals during those times are very different from the animals we have now? When you were in grade 7 to 9, you have learned that organisms are grouped into kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. You also learned that organisms possesses unique characteristics. Some organisms may look the same, but have distinct differences from each other. Others may not be related to one another, but they have similar functional features and characteristics. You may also wonder why some animals that are present before are no longer existing today. Using the informations and evidences they have gathered from the fossils they unearthed, scientists use a geological time scale to record different stages in Earth's story. This is the geologic time scale. Geologists define a long period of time as an era. It is divided into 3: the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic era. Paleozoic era, lasting from 544 to 245 million years ago, was the first time when planet Earth saw life in more than one cell, the formation of multicellular organisms. Paleozoic era has 6 periods: the Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, and Permian. It is on this era where the Cambrian explosion happened, an extraordinary diversification of marine animals, and ended about 252 million years ago with the end Permian extinction, the greatest extinction event in Earth history. Now comes the Mesozoic, 252 to 66 million years ago. It is also known as the age of reptiles and the age of plants and trees. This era is divided into three periods: the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. It was filled with crazy things like dinosaurs and single landmass and asteroid collisions. It is on this era dinosaurs ruled the world and the first flowers started forming, but ended with a huge asteroid crash on Earth. Finally, the Cenozoic era, from 66 million years ago up to the present day. On this era, many species, including all non-avian dinosaurs, were already extinct. The extinctions of many groups allowed mammals and birds to greatly diversify so that large mammals and birds dominate the Earth. It is divided into two periods, the Quaternary and the recent period. For your activity, look at the table on the screen. On a separate sheet of paper, complete the table by choosing your answers found inside the word pool and write it. Are you ready? You may pause the video while answering. Are you done? Let's go to your next activity. Here is a word find puzzle game. In your answer sheet, list down at least 8 words you could find in the puzzle and write them. I'll give you a clue. These words could be a name of a person, a part of an animal's body, a place, or anything that has something to do with evolution. Are you ready? Let's begin. Again, you may pause the video while answering. Theory of evolution. Evolution did not reach the status of being scientific theory until the famous Charles Darwin. Darwin published his famous book, The Origin of Species, in 1859. Darwin and a scientific contemporary of his, Alfred Russel Wallace, proposed that evolution occurs because of a phenomenon called natural selection. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck was the first evolutionist to believe that organisms change over time. Using fossil records as a guide, Lamarck was able to develop 3 theories. One is the theory of need. The second, the theory of use and disuse. And the last one, the theory of acquired characteristics. Now, what is Lamarck's theory of need? This theory states that organisms change in response to their environment. Their ability to survive helps them develop characteristics necessary for them to adapt in a given environment. Next is the theory of use and disuse, which according to Lamarck, organs not in use will disappear, while organs in use will develop. For example, if you're always lifting heavy objects, your arms will become bigger and stronger. On the other hand, if you're not using your arms, it will become weaker and smaller. Lamarck believed that giraffes before had short necks, but because of the need to survive and in order to reach tall trees for food, they kept stretching their necks until they become longer and able to reach taller trees. These changes is what Lamarck called acquired traits. The acquired characteristics were believed to be inherited by their offsprings and propagated by the next generation of giraffes. Lamarck called it the theory of acquired characteristics. Many scientists rejected the theories of Lamarck. They understood that if there were changes in cell or body structure, there could be changes in the genetic information of the species. For example, if you change the color of your hair from black to blonde, do you think your child can inherit the blonde color of your hair? A young lady keeps on using whitening soap and becomes fair. Can her child inherit her acquired fairness? Darwinian theory. The more popular theory of evolution proposed by Charles Darwin based on natural selection is different from the theories of Lamarck. According to Darwin, giraffe species originally had varying neck lengths, but natural selection favored the survival of giraffes with longer necks that could feed on taller trees that were available. Giraffes, on the other hand, with short necks, were eliminated due to lack of accessible food supply. Those with long necks were left, reproduced, and passed their genes to their offspring. Behind me is the HMS Beagle. 50 years after Lamarck's theory of use and disuse, it was used by Charles Darwin during his voyage to the Galapagos Island. Charles, when he got there, he was fascinated with the diversity of organisms he found along the journey. After his voyage, Charles Darwin suggested the theory of natural selection. In Galapagos Island, he observed that finch species have different beak structures for different food types. The abundance of certain finch species in an island was somehow related to the type of available food for these birds. Darwin suggested that selection also takes place in nature. In selective breeding, a farmer identifies and selects the best and desirable trait to propagate. In natural selection, environmental factors promote the survival of the fittest and eliminate the less fit. Natural selection. Natural selection is the process through which species adapt to their environments. It is the engine that drives evolution. Darwin developed the idea of natural selection after a 5-year voyage to study plants, animals, and fossils in South America and on the islands in the Pacific. In 1859, in his best-selling book on the origin of species, he brought the idea of natural selection to the attention of the world. Natural selection is the process through which populations of living organisms adapt and change. Individuals in a population are naturally variable, meaning that they are all different in some ways. This variation means that some individuals have traits better suited to the environment than others. Individuals with adapted traits that give them some advantage, are more likely to survive and reproduce. These individuals then pass the adapted traits to their offsprings. Over time, these advantageous traits become more common in the population. Through this process of natural selection, favorable traits are transmitted through generations. Natural selection can lead to speciation. What is speciation? It is where one species gives rise to a new and distinctly different species. It is one of the processes that drives evolution and helps to explain the diversity of life on Earth. Natural selection of Darwin is different with artificial selection or selective breeding. Natural selection happens naturally, while that of a selective breeding is controlled by humans. An example of this is the pigeon breeding, a popular hobby in its day, by choosing which pigeons mated with others. hobbyists created distinct pigeon breeds with fancy feathers or acrobatic flight that were different from wild pigeons. Variation and adaptation. Organisms struggle for existence. In order to survive, they compete for food and space. Organisms with favorable and advantageous characteristics survive and reproduce. These favorable and advantageous characteristics to survive and reproduce is referred to as fitness. Different individuals in a population possess different characteristics and abilities. This is called variation. Variation among individuals in the population would likely bring a greater chance of survival. An organism that is adapted and is structures fitted to survive in a given environment would likely produce offspring. Variation increases the chance of survival of living things. Organisms with the best and desirable traits would likely adapt to environmental changes and may gradually become better suited to survive in a given environment. This is adaptation, the ability of an organism to adjust and thrive in a given environment. Organisms which are best adapted to the environment will continue to reproduce and perpetuate their own kind. Mating between surviving populations of the same species may shift the abundance of a new breed of organism because of mutation, gene combination, and natural selection. This then leads to speciation and may subsequently increase biodiversity. Now let's go to our next activity. Look at the diagrams. Observe the set of footprints in the diagram and tell a story on different events, then predict what may probably happen at the end of the diagram. Write your answers in your answer sheets. Ready? Let's begin. You may pause the video while doing the activity. Species may change over time. Fossil records, developmental and molecular biology, and genetics may provide possible evidence for evolution. Patterns in animal development suggest that some organisms may have one common ancestor. Evidence in structure and molecular studies suggests that organisms are related with one another. Again, Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck proposed the theory of need, the theory of use and disuse, and the theory of acquired characteristics. Charles Darwin presented the theory of evolution based on natural selection. And last, speciation or formation of new species may occur through mutation, gene combination, and natural selection. Speciation increases biodiversity. Let's move on to your next activity. Research about species that can be found in your region. Look for pictures of the chosen species and describe their habits, habitat, nutritional needs, level in the food web, in paragraph form. Write your answer in your answer sheets. This should include, number 1, the title and species, scientific and common names. Number 2, your answers to the following question. In what type of habitat does your species live? What does your species eat? What are the main predators of your species? What animals does your species interact with on a daily basis? Review the following rubrics. If you are done, congratulations! We are almost done for our class for today. Did you learn much in our class? Let's find out. Get ready for your assessment. For your additional activity, after learning about variation and adaptation, you will now create a multimedia presentation about the things an individual must do in order to adapt and survive in environmental changes and challenges. You can express your thoughts and ideas from the point of view of an environmentalist, a climate change advocate, a mayor or governor of a particular town or a barangay official. Your presentation should cater to the common citizens to encourage them to be aware of environmental changes that can occur, to prepare them for things they need to do, and to help them adapt and survive in these environmental changes. You can interview people from Department of Environmental and Natural Resources or DENR, Climate Change Commission, National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRRMC, and other government agencies and non-government organizations or NGOs, where you can gather information that will help you with your presentation. Your multimedia presentation will be graded accordingly using a rubric. It will be assessed based on the purpose, content, understanding of the concepts, additional information, and creativity. That ends our lesson for this week. I hope you have learned a lot. Stay safe and God bless you. See you on our next video lesson. Bye!